Welcome to La Pausa. It's our new weekday morning show where we take a pause and talk about the biggest stories throughout the football world. Today we've got some crazy Premier League action, some crazy media drama in La Liga, and some crazy requests from PSG. Sometimes the football world is turned onside its head, and sometimes that's on the field, and sometimes that's off. Let's dive in. We can't talk about yesterday in the football world without talking about everything that was in the Tottenham-Everton game, and it was everything you'd expect an Everton-Tottenham game to be to the fullest effect, and I'm not talking about good things save for one play I'll talk about in a second. This was ugly football. You would hope two teams playing with everything on the line the way these clubs are at the moment would be playing with a little more urgency. Everton at least has an excuse. They're not that talented. Tottenham, I don't know what your excuse is. I know you just lost your manager, but it was only because he popped off to the media and ran his mouth. It wasn't for incompetence. So there's no excuse there. This game was ugly. No scoring in the first half. Then all hell breaks loose. We have a slap in the face of Harry Kane by Abdoulaye Doucouré. He gets the boot. Kane milked it for all it's worth. Should it have been a red card? Yeah, probably. If you really look at it, he clawed the heck out of his face, but it was definitely sold by, when one of the best players in the world flops around like that, you're probably going to get that call, particularly in England with an English player. So no shock there. Then Tottenham gives that advantage right back with Lucas Moura with a terrible red card. I mean, this game was just ugly all around. It looked like two teams who were falling apart because it was two teams that were falling apart. The saving grace was the absolute howitzer by Michael Keane to tie it up and save Everton and get them a point, which, because the relegation battle is so incredibly, amazingly tight right now in the Premier League, and I'm loving every minute of this because I'm not rooting for anybody, so it's just fun to watch, that jumped them almost comfortably out of it. No one's comfortable because they're only 1 point removed, but about 3 spots up thanks to goal differential. It was an amazing goal, an amazing strike, and it meant the world to Everton. He may have saved the entire organization. We'll see when it's all said and done. So not a pretty game, not a fun game, but it is sort of interesting when that's the only game on the docket on a Monday night in England and a Monday afternoon here in the States, and then it turns into a complete melee the way it did. It was, if nothing else, entertaining. Speaking of bad drama that's not good for anybody, we've got a mess of a situation between Barcelona, La Liga, and perhaps some legal systems and jurisdictions. I'm not going to get into the whole details of the did they or did they not bribe referees scandal. The long and short of it is that they paid referees apparently as consultants for advice on how to handle referees. No one's quite sure if they're buying that or not. But what has developed now is an accusation back from Barcelona to Javier Tebas, the president of La Liga, who apparently turned over some information to the investigation that may not have even pertained to the investigation. It may have been years old just to continue to make Barcelona management look bad. This was according to a report that came out over the weekend. We are flat out in the middle of a he said, and frankly, no one involved has a terrible amount of credibility. Now, I don't have any idea if Tebas did this or not, but for Barcelona to be accusing somebody else of not having integrity and of breaking some rules is absolutely just laughable at this point. They are the epitome of bending and or just flat out breaking rules in European football and thinking they can get away with it because they are Barcelona. So for them to now be, throwing these stones in glass houses is absolutely just absurd. At the end of the day, none of this is good for football. None of this should even exist. And it's just dragging the whole thing down. La Liga has a real problem right now. Both of its top two clubs, first of all, they're a two-team race, and it's over for most of the rest of the league before the season even starts. This year, one of them, Barcelona, is running away with it, so it's not even all that interesting to watch. And then at the end of the day, those two clubs are sort of crying poor. Barcelona is, in fact, poor and broke, and they tell you every single day, and that the system is rigged against them. They were at the forefront of the Super League, as was Tebas himself, and the whole thing just reeks, and La Liga is falling by the wayside. It is not as prominent of a league as it used to be. Those two clubs are still very prominent, but the league is not. And that is a slippery slope down to costing them more money. So these types of scandals only make it worse. When a league president gets involved, it starts to get into the integrity of the entire league. The integrity of the best club in the league is already completely shot. Barcelona is a complete mess. You cannot believe anything they say, whether it's pulling financial levers or, oh, the check's in the mail, we'll pay you Tuesday, or anything. They're completely full of shit every time they talk, and who knows if this is any different or not, but for them to be calling out somebody else's integrity is absolutely laughable. Last but not least, we've got a story from over the weekend where PSG is taking a page straight out of the Barcelona playbook, and I mean that in all of the worst possible ways. PSG has reportedly asked Lionel Messi to take a pay cut, and Lionel Messi has said no, which in and of itself would not be a story, except that somehow Lionel Messi is being made to be the bad guy here, and we saw some jeering from PSG fans over the weekend, and the media is portraying him as greedy because Lionel Messi makes a ridiculous sum of money, 1.2 million euros a week. It's an insane amount of money, but he's an insane football player, and more importantly, there's two key points here. He is living up to that contract, 18 goals, 17 assists across all competitions on the season. But here's the key factor, and I hate to break this secret to everybody, PSG agreed to this contract. Did they think it was going to be cheap to get Lionel Messi and to steal him from Barcelona? Of course it wasn't. They agreed to this massive contract, and now they're crying poor. Now, unlike Barcelona, who is actually poor and doesn't have the money, so they do things like ask Frankie de Jong to renegotiate his contract, and he gives them the finger and says no thank you. PSG's situation is even worse because they're not actually broke. They're not poor, they're one of the richest clubs in the world. The problem here is that they've made bad financial decisions, and now they're up against some financial fair play guidelines, or at least they think they are. I don't know how any club knows they are until they have violated, and even then it's in a gray area, just ask Manchester City. But nevertheless, they feel like they are capped out into what they can spend legally without getting into trouble. They already got a fine through financial fair play not too long ago, and it looks like they're up against another one, or maybe have another one coming, or just think they're going to get another one. Either way, they have painted themselves into a corner voluntarily by paying Lionel Messi as much money as they have. So this isn't a matter of being broke the way Barcelona always claims to be through their own decision making. It's only a hair better. But this is even worse because they've got the money, they're just not allowed to spend it because they've spent it all. And they've spent it all on Lionel Messi, who's having an incredible season and continues to deliver year after year. These clubs have got to stop going back to the players and asking to redo contracts. The players don't get to do that. They have to keep playing their contracts out. Yes, they can threaten to leave and they can ask to renegotiate, but the clubs don't just voluntarily pay them more unless they're afraid of losing them. Well, same thing here. You can't just go back and go, oh, by the way, we paid you too much money and now we're out of money. Would you take less? Of course that's not going to happen. Lionel Messi didn't become one of the wealthiest athletes in the world by giving back money when he's flat out earned it and when his club has agreed to it. So this entire premise is absolutely crazy. It's ridiculous that PSG asked. It's ridiculous that Lionel Messi is now somehow the bad guy for saying no. The entire system's broken, and the entire image of how we treat these players is ridiculous. Lionel Messi is worth every single penny PSG is paying him. He's entitled to it. It was agreed upon, and he shouldn't budge an inch. I stand by that. Coming up today, we got a huge slate of action for a Tuesday that isn't a Champions League Tuesday. First, we've got DFB Pokal quarterfinal action. Eintracht Frankfurt taking on Union Berlin early, and then Bayern Munich taking on Freiburg later. Maybe João Cancelo will get a chance to play. He can stop whining. Premier League action, we got 4 games, including the train wreck that will be Chelsea and Liverpool. Big names. Feel like you got to watch. It ain't going to be pretty. We've also got, more interestingly, there's a relegation battle between Nottingham Forest and Leeds. That's a much more interesting game for me. And then if you're into it, Coppa Italia semifinals, Juventus and Inter Milan, 2 teams that are not having their best years, but still big names in a domestic cup final, so probably worth watching. Thanks for joining us here on La Pausa. Hope you have a great day. Take that pause, enjoy the football action. This is Pints and Punditry here at Total FIFA Career Mode.